I leaned against the cool granite of our kitchen island, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air as I watched Emma move through her morning routine. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional chirp of birds outside our expansive windows. At 35, I'd carved out a life I could stand tall in. An architecture firm that was finally getting the recognition it deserved, with my designs popping up in glossy magazines and city planning meetings. Our home in Elmwood Heights was my masterpiece. Clean lines, open spaces, a perfect blend of glass and steel that felt like a sanctuary. I'd spent years sketching it, tweaking every angle until it was just right. Emma loved it too, or so she'd always said. She was across the room now, packing her yoga bag with that effortless grace I'd fallen for back when we were just kids scraping by in a cramped apartment. Her auburn hair shimmered in the morning light, pulled into a loose bun that somehow looked both casual and deliberate. At 32, she was striking fit from endless hours of teaching, her presence warm and magnetic. She'd built her own little empire, a yoga studio that drew in a loyal crowd of suburban moms and stressed-out executives. People adored her. I'd seen it in their eyes at neighborhood barbecues, the way they hung on her every word. We were the couple everyone envied, dedicated, successful, a team. Or at least that's what I thought. That morning, she glanced over her shoulder and flashed me a smile, the kind that still made my chest tighten after all these years. "Busy day ahead?" she asked, zipping up her bag. Her voice was light, like she didn't have a care in the world. "Yeah," I said, setting my mug down. "Client meeting downtown, then some revisions on the Harper project." "You? Private session this morning, then a group class," she replied, slinging the bag over her shoulder. She crossed the room, her bare feet silent on the hardwood, and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. Her lips were soft, familiar, and I caught the faint scent of lavender from her lotion. "Don't work too hard, okay?" "You either," I said, watching her head for the door. She waved once, then slipped out, the click of the latch echoing faintly in the stillness. I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space she'd left behind, feeling a quiet pride in the life we'd built together. 8 years of marriage, countless late nights dreaming up our future, and here we were, thriving, untouchable. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that Emma was hiding something. Not just a fleeting thought or a harmless flirtation, but something bigger, something that would unravel everything I'd believed about us. And it wasn't with just anyone. It was with Ryan Reynolds, the Hollywood star who'd somehow wandered into her world. I'd find out later that it wasn't a simple betrayal. It was something stranger, something I couldn't have imagined even in my wildest nightmares. But that morning, as I rinsed my mug and grabbed my keys, I was still blissfully ignorant, stepping into my day like a man who thought he had it all figured out. The day unfolded like most others. I drove downtown, the city skyline stretching out ahead of me, a testament to years of grinding through blueprints and sleepless nights. My meeting with the Harper clients went smoothly. They loved the latest draft of their office complex, all sharp angles and sustainable materials. I nodded along as they praised the design, my mind half on their words, half on the quiet satisfaction of seeing my work take shape. By noon, I was back at my office, a small but sleek space I'd rented in the Arts District. My assistant, Claire, handed me a stack of messages, mostly follow-ups from contractors and a reminder about a charity gala next week. "Emma called," she added casually, flipping through her notepad. "Said she'd be late tonight. Something about a client needing extra time." I barely looked up from my laptop. "Thanks, Claire," I said, my fingers already tapping out an email. Emma's schedule was fluid. Private yoga sessions often ran long, especially with her high-profile clients. It wasn't unusual. I trusted her implicitly. She'd always been upfront about her work, or so I'd thought. I sent her a quick text, "No worries, I'll grab takeout. See you later," and got back to my revisions. The afternoon slipped by in a haze of measurements and mock-ups, the kind of focus that had carried me this far. It was after 6 when I finally packed up, the sky outside bruising into dusk. I stopped by our favorite Thai place on the way home, picking up pad Thai and green curry, Emma's go-to order. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, her Prius still missing from its usual spot. I shrugged it off, figuring her session had stretched even longer. I set the food on the counter, flicked on the lights, and settled into the living room with my tablet, scrolling through project notes. The quiet didn't bother me. I'd always liked the stillness of our home when it was just me and my thoughts. But then, around 8, something nudged at the edge of my mind. I checked my phone. No reply to my earlier text. Odd, but not alarming. Emma wasn't glued to her phone like some people. She'd often get lost in her work and respond hours later. Still, I sent another message. Everything okay? Food's getting cold. No dots. No read receipt. I frowned, leaning back on the couch, the leather creaking under me. The house felt emptier than usual, the silence heavier. I told myself it was nothing. She'd walk in any minute, apologizing with that sheepish grin of hers, explaining how her client had needed some extra stretching or mindfulness coaching. By 9, though, the unease had settled in deeper. I called her, straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said, keeping my tone light. "Just checking in. Let me know you're good." I hung up, staring at the screen as if it might buzz back to life. Didn't. I stood, pacing the length of the living room, my eyes drifting to the framed photos on the mantel. Us at our wedding, laughing on a beach in Bali, posing outside this house the day we moved in. 8 years. 8 years of building something solid, something I'd never questioned. But now, with the clock ticking past 10 and the takeout still untouched, a tiny crack formed in that certainty. I didn't know it yet, but it was the first fracture in a foundation I thought was unbreakable. And it all tied back to Ryan Reynolds, a name I'd heard her mention offhandedly weeks ago, a new client she'd seemed oddly excited about. That night, though, I didn't connect the dots. I just waited, the unease growing, oblivious to the storm that was already gathering. I didn't sleep much that night. By 11, I'd given up waiting on the couch and moved to the bedroom, leaving the takeout congealing on the counter. The bed felt too big without Emma, the sheets cold on her side. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the minimalist light fixture I'd installed casting faint shadows across the room. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No texts, no calls, just the unanswered voicemail I'd left her. I told myself she'd lost track of time, maybe stayed late to help a client with some elaborate yoga routine. It wouldn't be the first time. But the longer the silence stretched, the harder it was to shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Around midnight, I heard the faint rumble of her Prius pulling into the driveway. Relief washed over me, tinged with irritation. I sat up, rubbing my face, ready to tease her about keeping me up worrying. The front door clicked open, followed by the soft thud of her bag hitting the floor. Her footsteps padded up the stairs, and then she was in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the hall light. "Hey," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "Sorry I'm so late. Where've you been?" I asked, keeping it casual, though my pulse ticked up a notch. She stepped into the room, peeling off her jacket. Her hair was loose now, slightly mussed, and her cheeks had a flush I couldn't quite place. Exercise, maybe, or the February chill. "Client ran way over," she said, slipping out of her shoes. "You know how it is, one minute we're finishing a session, the next they're asking for advice on breathing techniques or diet plans." I didn't realize how late it got. She offered a small smile, the kind that usually melted any tension between us, and crossed to the bathroom. "I'm wiped. Mind if I shower quick?" "Go for it," I said, leaning back against the headboard. The explanation made sense. Her private clients were a needy bunch, always wanting more of her time. I'd seen it myself when I'd drop by the studio, the way they'd linger after class, soaking up her attention. Still, as the hiss of the shower started, I couldn't shake the itch in my mind. Her phone had been off. Not low battery, not on silent, off. That wasn't like her. I slid out of bed and padded downstairs, telling myself I was just grabbing water. Her bag sat by the door where she'd dropped it, the zipper half open. I hesitated, my hand hovering over it. We didn't snoop. That wasn't us. But the unease from earlier gnawed at me, and before I could talk myself out of it, I nudged the bag open wider. Inside was her usual stuff: yoga mat, water bottle, a folded towel. Then I saw her phone, tucked into a side pocket. I pulled it out, pressed the power button. Nothing. Dead. Or turned off. I set it back, feeling a pang of guilt, and grabbed the water from the kitchen instead. When I returned, she was already in bed, towel drying her hair. "Food still downstairs?" she asked, yawning. "Yeah, Ty," I said, climbing in beside her. "It's cold now, though." "Tomorrow, then," she murmured, curling up under the covers. She reached for my hand, her fingers brushing mine, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. "Night, David." "Night," I echoed, but I didn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the day, the late return, the dead phone, the flush on her cheeks. I thought back to the past few weeks, searching for signs I'd missed. She'd been busier lately, sure, but she'd chalked it up to a new client. Ryan Reynolds, she'd said once, almost offhandedly, when I'd asked about her schedule. "You know, the actor? He's in town filming, wanted private sessions." I'd laughed. Ryan Reynolds doing yoga with my wife sounded absurd, like something out of a tabloid. She'd laughed too, brushing it off, and I hadn't thought much of it since. Now, though, lying there in the dark, I wondered, had she mentioned him more than once? Had her tone shifted when his name came up? I couldn't pin it down, but the seed was planted. It was subtle, buried under layers of trust and routine, but it was there, a flicker of doubt I couldn't unsee. I told myself I was overthinking it. Emma wouldn't lie. Not to me. Not after everything we'd built. But as her breathing steadied beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something crucial. Something that had been right in front of me all along. Morning came too soon. The pale February light filtering through the blinds and pulling me out of a restless half-sleep. Emma was already up, her side of the bed empty, the sheets smoothed back into place. I could hear her downstairs, the clink of a mug against the counter, the faint gurgle of the coffee maker. For a moment, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to shake the fog of last night's unease. It clung to me, though heavy and persistent, like a damp chill I couldn't warm up from. I'd spent hours turning it over. Her late return, the dead phone, the way she'd breezed past it all with that tired smile. It didn't add up, not quite, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. I dragged myself out of bed, pulling on a sweater and jeans, and headed downstairs. Emma was in the kitchen, leaning against the island in her yoga gear, black leggings, a loose tank top, her hair tied back. She looked like she always did, poised, vibrant, the woman I'd built my life around. "Morning," she said, glancing up from her phone with a quick smile. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." "Thanks," I muttered, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. I poured it black, the steam curling up as I watched her scroll through something. Texts, maybe, or her schedule. Her phone was alive now, the screen glowing, no sign of whatever had kept it dark last night. I wanted to ask about it, to press her on why it had been off, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I leaned against the counter opposite her, sipping the coffee, letting the silence stretch. "Busy day?" she asked, not looking up. Her tone was light, conversational, like nothing had shifted between us. "Same as usual," I said, keeping my voice even. "You? Morning class, then a private session this afternoon." She set the phone down and reached for her own mug, cradling it in her hands. "Might be another late one, just so you know. This client's really into the whole mindfulness thing. Keeps wanting to go deeper." "Which client?" The question slipped out before I could stop it, sharper than I'd meant. She paused, her mug halfway to her lips, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or hesitation. It was gone as fast as it came. "Ryan," she said, casual as ever. "You know, the actor guy. He's still in town, filming that big comedy thing. Says the sessions help him stay grounded." I nodded, forcing a small smile. "Right, Ryan Reynolds. Must be wild, having him as a client." She shrugged, setting her mug down. It's not that different. He's just a guy, funny, down to earth. You'd like him. She grabbed her bag from the stool beside her, slinging it over her shoulder. Anyway, I should run. See you tonight. Yeah, I said, watching her head for the door. See you. The latch clicked behind her, and I stood there, the coffee bitter on my tongue, her words echoing in my head. You'd like him. Maybe I would have once, but now, the name felt like a splinter under my skin, small but impossible to ignore. I spent the morning at my desk, sketches and emails blurring together as my mind wandered. Ryan Reynolds. I'd never met him, never even thought much about him beyond the occasional movie night when Emma would pick one of his films. Deadpool or that rom-com she loved. She'd mentioned him joining her sessions a few weeks back, maybe a month. I hadn't paid much attention then, just nodded along, amused at the idea of a celebrity sweating it out in her studio. But now I tried to piece it together. When had she started coming home later? When had her schedule gotten so packed with these private sessions? I couldn't pinpoint it, not exactly, but the pattern was there, faint and creeping. By noon, I couldn't focus. I pushed my chair back, grabbed my laptop, and typed his name into a search bar. Pages of results, movie reviews, red carpet photos, interviews. Nothing useful. Then I tried his social media, scrolling through posts about his latest project. Some quippy captions that made me roll my eyes. Nothing about yoga, nothing about Elmwood Heights. Of course not, he wouldn't advertise it. I hesitated, then searched her studio's page instead. She didn't post much, just class schedules and the occasional serene photo. Sunsets, her silhouette in a pose. But there, buried in the comments from a week ago, was a reply from her. Thanks. Private sessions are booking up fast. Grateful for the support. A fan had asked who she was training. Her response. Just some folks looking to zen out. No big names here. A winking emoji followed. It was playful, typical Emma. But it didn't sit right. I closed the laptop, my chest tight. I wasn't a jealous guy, never had been. Emma had her life, I had mine, and we'd always trusted each other to keep it balanced. But this felt different. It wasn't proof, not even close, but it was enough to make me question. Enough to wonder what going deeper really meant with a guy like Ryan Reynolds. I told myself I was being paranoid, that she'd laugh if I brought it up. But as I sat there, the house quiet around me, the doubt grew heavier. It wasn't just her phone being off last night. It was the way she dodged my eyes this morning, the casualness that felt too practiced. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, but I knew I couldn't let it go. Not anymore. The afternoon dragged on, my office feeling more like a cage than a workspace. I tried to bury myself in the Harper project, tweaking elevations, adjusting lighting plans, but my focus kept slipping. Every line I drew blurred into questions I couldn't answer. Emma's voice looped in my head. Ryan? Funny, down to earth. You'd like him. It was innocent enough on its own, the kind of thing she'd say about any client. But paired with last night's silence, the dead phone, the flush on her cheeks when she'd walked in, it gnawed at me. By 2 o'clock, I'd given up pretending to work. I needed something tangible, some thread to pull that would either unravel my suspicions or stitch them back into nothing. I grabbed my keys and headed out, telling Claire I'd be back later. The drive to Emma's studio wasn't long, 15 minutes through Elmwood Heights, past manicured lawns and boutique shops. It was a small space, tucked into a strip mall between a juice bar and a florist, its glass front etched with her logo, a lotus flower in soft gray. I'd helped her pick the spot years ago, sketching layouts for the interior until it matched her vision. Open, airy, a haven for her students. Now, as I pulled into the lot, it felt foreign, like I was trespassing on someone else's territory. Her Prius was there, parked neatly near the entrance. I didn't plan to go in, not yet. I just wanted to see, to feel out the rhythm of her day. I sat in my car, engine off, watching the door. A few women trickled out, yoga mats rolled under their arms, chatting as they headed to their SUVs. Her morning class probably just wrapping up. I checked my watch, 2:15. She'd said she had a private session this afternoon. Ryan, if I'd guessed right. I didn't know his schedule. Didn't even know if he'd show up today. But the thought of him walking through that door made my stomach twist. I waited. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. A sleek black Tesla pulled in, parking a few spaces down. The driver stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses despite the overcast sky. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the build, the casual confidence. It matched the guy I'd seen in a dozen movie posters. Ryan Reynolds. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. He slung a gym bag over his shoulder and disappeared inside the studio, the door swinging shut behind him. I exhaled, slow and deliberate, trying to keep my head clear. It didn't mean anything. He was her client. She'd said as much. People paid good money for private yoga sessions, especially with someone like Emma, who had a reputation for making you feel like the only person in the room. But the timing gnawed at me. Last night's late session had stretched past 10. If he was here now, mid-afternoon, what had kept her out so long yesterday? I pulled out my phone, opened the studio's booking system. She'd given me the login years ago to help with scheduling when she'd first started. I scrolled through her calendar. Today, group class, 10 a.m. to 11:30. Then a private session, 2:30 to 3:30. Yesterday, group class, 4 p.m. to 5:30. Private session, 6 to 7. Nothing after that. No overlap, no extra hours booked. So where had she been? I sat back, staring at the studio door. The rational part of me wanted to laugh it off. Maybe she'd grabbed dinner with a friend, lost track of time, forgot to charge her phone. But the other part, the one that wouldn't let go, kept whispering. What if? What if those extra hours weren't innocent? What if Ryan wasn't just a client? I didn't have proof, not even a scrap, but the pieces were piling up. Her late nights, the vague excuses, the way she'd brushed off my questions this morning. I couldn't confront her yet. I'd look like a paranoid idiot. But I couldn't sit here doing nothing either. I started the car and drove home, the hum of the engine doing little to quiet my thoughts. Back in the house, I went straight to her office, a small nook off the living room where she kept her records and lesson plans. I'd never rifled through her things before. It felt wrong, like I was betraying the trust we'd built. But the weight of doubt was heavier than guilt. Her desk was tidy, notebooks stacked, a jar of pens, a framed photo of us from a hike last summer. I opened the top drawer. Receipts, a few business cards, nothing unusual. Then the bottom one. A planner, leather-bound, her handwriting filling the pages. I flipped to February. Yesterday's entry. Asterisk, 6-7. Ryan, tantric focus. Asterisk tantric focus? I frowned. I knew enough about yoga to recognize the term, something about energy, connection, breathing. But it wasn't her usual style. She stuck to vinyas, hatha, the practical stuff. I flipped back. Similar entries dotted the past few weeks, all with Ryan's name. Asterisk, tantric flow. Energy work. Extended session. Asterisk. My chest tightened. It wasn't proof of anything. Yoga could get weird, I knew that. But it was personal, intimate in a way her group classes never were. I closed the planner, slid it back, and sat there, the photo of us staring back at me. Her smile in the picture was wide, unguarded, the Emma I'd married. Was that still her? Or had she slipped into something else? Something I didn't recognize? I didn't know yet, but I was going to find out. I couldn't unsee this. Not the Tesla, not the planner, not the hours that didn't add up. The crack in my trust was widening, and I was already reaching for the next thread to pull. I spent the rest of that afternoon pacing the house. The planner's words. Asterisk tantric focus. Extended session asterisk. Burning into my thoughts. I wasn't a yoga expert, but I wasn't naive either. Tantric anything sounded less like stretching and more like something personal, something that crossed lines. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't confront Emma yet, not without more. Accusing her based on a hunch and a few scribbled notes would only blow up in my face. She'd deny it, I'd look unhinged, and we'd be left picking up the pieces of a fight I wasn't ready to start. No, I needed proof. Something solid. Something she couldn't talk her way out of. I sat at the kitchen table, my laptop open, the glow of the screen harsh against the darkening room. First, I dug into Ryan Reynolds' schedule. He was filming in town, some comedy blockbuster, according to the trades. A quick search pulled up production updates. Principal photography had started 6 weeks ago, set to wrap in March. That lined up with when Emma first mentioned him. I found a fan site tracking his movements, photos of him at a local coffee shop, a gym downtown, nothing near Elmwood Heights. But he was here, no question, and his Tesla in her lot today proved he wasn't just a name in her planner. Next, I turned to logistics. If something was happening, it wasn't at the studio. Not enough privacy, not with neighbors and foot traffic. Her late nights meant they were meeting somewhere else. A hotel? His place? I didn't have access to his life, but I had hers. I pulled up our shared credit card statements. Something I hadn't checked in months, trusting her to handle the bills. Most of it was routine groceries, gas, studio supplies. Then, 3 weeks back, a charge caught my eye. $180 at a boutique spa downtown. She'd never mentioned it. I Googled the place. Small, upscale, known for holistic experiences. No details beyond that, but the timing fit. A Tuesday night, another late session day. I kept scrolling. Another charge, 2 weeks ago, $75 at a wine bar nearby. Alone? With him? My jaw tightened. I couldn't tail her, not without her noticing my car. But I could be smarter. I opened an app store on my phone, searching for tracking options. A GPS tag seemed extreme, but I was past caring about ethics. I ordered one. A tiny device, magnetic, meant for cars, paying extra for overnight shipping. It'd arrive tomorrow. If she was going somewhere after her sessions, I'd know. I closed the laptop, the plan settling into place. It wasn't about catching her in the act. Not yet. It was about knowing, about peeling back the layers she'd hidden from me. When Emma got home that night, I'd play the part, calm, oblivious, the husband she thought I still was. She walked in around 8, her yoga bag slung over her shoulder, her expression tired but bright. "Hey," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Long day. How was yours?" "Fine," I said, stirring a pot of pasta I'd thrown together. "Just the usual grind." "You? Exhausting," she sighed, dropping her bag by the couch. That private session ran over again. Ryan's really into this tantric stuff. Keeps pushing for more time. She laughed lightly, like it was a quirky client story, and headed upstairs to change. I gripped the spoon harder, forcing a nod. Tantric stuff. More time. She'd handed me the thread, and I was already pulling. The next day I woke early, the house still dark. Emma slept beside me, her breathing soft and steady, oblivious to the storm brewing in my head. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her, and checked my phone. Tracking confirmation for the GPS tag. It'd be here by noon. I showered, dressed, and left for the office before she stirred, leaving a note on the counter. Asterisk early meeting. See you tonight. Asterisk I needed space to think, to keep my hands busy while the pieces fell into place. At work, I was a ghost, nodding through calls, sketching absent-mindedly, my mind elsewhere. Claire dropped off a coffee, eyeing me curiously. "You okay, David? You look off." I waved her off with a half-smile, claiming a late night. She didn't push. By 11, the delivery app pinged package at the door. I drove home, the streets a blur, and found the small box tucked behind a planter. Inside was the tag. Black, no bigger than a key fob with a magnetic base and a link to an app. I synced it, tested the signal. It worked. Simple, silent, invisible. I slid it into my pocket and headed back out, the weight of it grounding me. That afternoon, I waited until Emma left for her evening class. She texted me her schedule, as if nothing had changed. I pulled into the studio lot after her Prius was gone, parking near the dumpster where no one would notice. I crouched by her car, sliding the tag under the wheel well, the magnet snapping into place. My heart pounded, not from fear of getting caught, but from the line I was crossing. This wasn't me, or it hadn't been. But the old me didn't exist anymore, not since that planner, not since that Tesla. I wiped my hands on my jeans, got back in my car, and watched the app. A dot blinked to life, her car, still at the studio. I drove home, the mask of normalcy slipping back on. She came home at 9, later than her class should have ended, but not as late as the night before. "Hey!" she called, dropping her keys on the table. "You eat yet?" "Not yet," I said, flipping through a magazine I hadn't read. "How'd it go?" "Good," she said, pouring a glass of water. "Ryan showed up again, same deal, lots of questions. He's intense about it." She smiled, like it was endearing, and I nodded, my face a blank slate. Intense. Sure. I didn't ask more. I didn't need to. The app would tell me what she wouldn't. We ate leftovers in front of the TV, some mindless show neither of us cared about, and I played my part, laughing at her jokes, brushing her hand when she reached for the remote. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, and I felt the disconnect, the gap widening between who she thought I was and who I'd become. The dot on my phone stayed put that night. Her car hadn't moved after she got home. But tomorrow I'd know more. Tomorrow the mask would hold, but the truth would start to bleed through. Friday morning, I was up before dawn, checking the app while Emma slept. The dot hadn't budged. Her Prius was still in the driveway. I made coffee, moved through the routine, keeping my movements quiet. She came down at 7, bleary-eyed but cheerful, kissing my cheek as she grabbed a mug. "Morning," she said. "Any plans today?" "Just work," I lied, sipping my coffee. "You?" "Light day," she said. "Class at 10, then Ryan at 3. Might grab drinks with Lisa after. Haven't seen her in forever." Lisa, her old college friend. Convenient. I nodded, filing it away. Drinks with Lisa sounded plausible, but I wasn't buying anything at face value anymore. I left for the office, the app open on my passenger seat. By 10, the dot shifted, her car heading to the studio. I watched it settle there, matching her class time. 3, it stayed put, Ryan's session probably. I worked through the afternoon, my eyes flicking to the screen every hour. At 5, the dot moved north, away from home, toward downtown. Drinks with Lisa, she'd said. I Googled the wine bar from the credit card charge, 10 minutes from the studio, right in the dot's path. I waited, the app's silent pulse my only company. By 7, the dot hadn't moved. I texted her. Asterisk, having fun with Lisa? Asterisk, her reply came quick. Asterisk. Yeah. Catching up. Might be late. Don't wait up. Asterisk, I stared at the screen, the dot mocking me from the wine bar's address. I drove home, the house dark and empty, and pulled up the bar's website. Cozy, dimly lit, the kind of place you'd take a date, not a friend. I called Lisa's number. Emma had added it to our shared contacts years ago. It rang twice before she picked up, her voice bright. David? Hey, what's up? Just checking in, I said, keeping it light. Emma said you two were grabbing drinks tonight. A pause. Drinks? No, I haven't seen her in weeks. Work's been crazy. My stomach dropped, but I forced a laugh. Must have mixed it up, I said. My bad. Take care. I hung up, the lie sinking in. Not Lisa. Someone else. I checked the app, the dot still at the wine bar. I grabbed my keys, my pulse steady but cold. I wasn't gonna barge in, not yet. I drove downtown, parking a block away, and walked past the bar, cap pulled low. Through the window, I saw her, Emma, at a corner table laughing, her hand brushing a man's arm. Ryan. No mistaking him, even in the dim light. I turned away, the image searing into me, and went home. The dot moved later, 11, heading to a hotel nearby. I didn't sleep. Saturday morning, Emma breezed in at 10, claiming she'd crashed at Lisa's after too many drinks. I nodded, pouring her coffee, my face a mask of calm. Fun night? I asked. Yeah, she said, stretching. Lisa's a riot. Missed that. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. The lie was effortless, polished. I let her talk, nodding along, while the app burned in my pocket. Her car's path etched into my memory. Wine bar, hotel, home. I didn't need more, but I wanted it. Something undeniable, something to shove in her face when the time came. I spent the day digging. The hotel's website offered nothing, no guest list, no cameras I could hack. But I had the spa charge from weeks ago. I called, posing as a confused husband checking a bill. My wife booked something. $180, 3 weeks back. Can you tell me what it was? The receptionist hesitated, then relented. A couples retreat package, sir. Tantric workshop, private room. Couples. Tantric. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there, the pieces snapping into place. Not yoga. Not mindfulness. Something else, something intimate, deliberate with him. That night, I waited until she was asleep, her breathing deep and even. I took her phone from the nightstand. Unlocked, her trust in me absolute. Messages with Ryan, buried under a fake name, studio assistant. Asterisk, loved last night. Same time next week? Asterisk his reply. Asterisk, can't wait. You're incredible. Asterisk photos followed. Her in a robe, him shirtless, a candlelit room. My hands shook, but I didn't stop. I forwarded it all to myself, deleted the evidence, and put the phone back. She slept on, oblivious, while I sat in the dark, the betrayal sinking in. It wasn't just an affair. It was a ritual, a connection she'd chased with him, built on lies she'd fed me for weeks. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I planned. Sunday, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. Emma thought she'd won. Thought I was blind, pliable, the husband she could string along. She was wrong. I wasn't the type to scream or storm out. My revenge wouldn't be loud. It'd be precise, devastating, a design as sharp as anything I'd ever drafted. I started small, gathering tools. I kept the evidence. Texts, photos, the app's logs, backed up on a drive she'd never find. I called a friend, Mark, a PI I'd met through a client. Need discreet surveillance, I said. No questions. He agreed, no hesitation. Monday, I acted normal. Kissed her goodbye, went to work, smiled through meetings. Behind it, I moved pieces. Mark tailed Ryan, confirming his rental. A sleek condo downtown. I dug into his life, publicist's number, filming schedule, habits. Emma's routine stayed the same. Classes, late sessions, lies about Lisa. I let her think I was clueless, feeding her rope to hang herself. By Wednesday, Mark had photos, Emma and Ryan, leaving the hotel, her arm looped through his. I had enough to bury her, but I wanted more. I wanted them to feel it. I booked a meeting with Ryan's publicist under a fake name, posing as a developer with a lucrative pitch. Thursday, I sat across from her. Sharp, polished, all business. My client's got a project, I said, sliding an envelope across the table. Exclusive retreat, high-profile guest list. Needs Ryan's charm. She opened it, photos of him and Emma, timestamps, hotel receipts. Her face tightened. This stays quiet, I said, voice low, or it goes public. Your call. She nodded, pale, and I left. Step 1, his career teetering. Step 2 would be Emma's turn. I drove home, the mask still on, but the gears were turning. They'd built their betrayal in secret. I'd dismantle it in the open, piece by cruel piece. The publicist's reaction lingered in my mind as I drove home that Thursday night. Her wide eyes, the way her fingers hesitated over the envelope. She'd keep it quiet for now, but the threat was planted, a fuse I could light whenever I chose. Ryan's world, his polished image, his blockbuster deals, hung by a thread, and I held the scissors. But that was only half the equation. Emma was the other piece, the one who'd looked me in the eye and lied, who'd turned our life into a stage for her secret games. She wouldn't get off with a warning. Her fall would be slower, sharper, a collapse she'd feel in her bones. Friday morning, I played the part flawlessly. Emma was in the kitchen, humming as she blended a smoothie, her yoga gear laid out like it was any other day. Big plans? I asked, sipping my coffee, my tone light. Just the usual. she said, pouring the green mess into a glass. Class at noon, then Ryan later. Might be another late one. He's really leaning into this stuff. She smiled, oblivious, and I nodded, my face a mirror of calm. Inside, I catalogued every word, every glance, building the case she didn't know I'd already closed. I kissed her forehead on my way out, the gesture mechanical, and drove to the office. The GPS app blinked on my phone. Her Prius still at home. I check it later, but I didn't need it anymore. I had the photos, the texts, the spa's confirmation. The tracking was just insurance now, a way to map her final steps. At work, I called Mark again. Need more, I said. Audio if you can get it. Hotel, condo, wherever they go. He didn't flinch. Professionals like him thrived on the gray areas. Give me a day, he said. I hung up and turned to Emma's world. Her studio was her pride, her sanctuary, the thing she'd built from nothing. I'd helped her fund it, co-signed the lease, poured my own designs into its bones. Now it'd be her Achilles heel. I pulled the lease docs from our home files, scanned them the night before while she slept, and found the landlord's contact. A quick call, a vague story about financial concerns, and he agreed to a meeting next week. Step 2, her business teetering. That night, she came home at 10, claiming another session ran long. I didn't ask. I just watched her move through the house, shedding her lies like a second skin, and waited. Mark texted at midnight, audio clips incoming. I slipped into my office, headphones on, and listened. Her voice, soft and playful. Asterisk. You make this so easy, Ryan. Asterisk his laugh, low and warm. Asterisk. You're the one who's magic. Asterisk a pause, then murmurs, intimate, unmistakable. My hands clenched, but I didn't stop. I saved it all, the noose tightening. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. Saturday, I let the mask slip, just enough to test her. We were at breakfast, sunlight streaming through the windows, the air thick with unspoken tension. You've been late a lot lately, I said, cutting into a pancake, my tone neutral. This Ryan guy must really like yoga. She froze, fork halfway to her mouth, then recovered with a laugh. Yeah, he's dedicated. It's good for business, you know? She took a bite, her eyes flicking to mine, searching. I held her gaze, letting the silence stretch, then shrugged. Sure, I said, turning back to my plate. Just seems intense for stretching. Her smile faltered, but she didn't push back. The seed was planted, doubt not in me but in her own control. She'd wonder if I knew, if I suspected. I wanted her off balance, second-guessing every move. That afternoon, Mark delivered. A USB drive with photos, audio, even a grainy video from the hotel lobby. Emma and Ryan, arms linked, disappearing into an elevator. I didn't watch it twice. I didn't need to. I called the landlord instead, setting up Monday's meeting, and emailed a lawyer friend, Sarah, about divorce options. Hypothetical, I said. Just curious. She sent a checklist, assets, proof of infidelity, timelines. I had it all. But divorce was too clean, too final. I wanted them to suffer first. Sunday I struck. Ryan's publicist got another envelope. Copies of the audio, a note. Asterisk, leak it or I will. Asterisk by evening. Whispers hit the tabloids. Unnamed sources. Mystery woman. Nothing concrete yet, but enough to rattle him. I watched Emma's phone light up with texts she didn't show me, her brow furrowing as she typed furiously. Everything okay? I asked, flipping through a book I wasn't reading. Yeah, she said, too quick. Just studio stuff. She didn't meet my eyes. I smiled to myself, the first strike landing. Ryan's world was wobbling. Hers was next. I'd dismantle them piece by piece, and they'd never see it coming. Monday morning, I met the landlord, Tom, a gruff guy in his 60s who smelled like cigars and liked straight talk. I laid it out. Emma's been struggling, late payments, overstretched. I'm worried about the lease. It wasn't true, her books were solid, but I had the credit card charges, the spa and wine bar receipts, doctored to look like business losses. Tom frowned, flipping through the papers I'd brought. Didn't realize it was this bad, he said. She's always been good for it. She's good at hiding it, I replied, leaning back. I'm co-signer. I'd rather cut losses now than drag it out. He nodded, reluctant but convinced. By noon, he drafted a notice, 30 days to vacate unless she could prove solvency. I thanked him, the second blow locked in. Her studio, her identity, dangling by a thread she didn't know I'd cut. I got home before her, the notice tucked away. She walked in at 7, distracted, her phone buzzing again. Rough day? I asked, stirring a pot of soup. Yeah, she muttered, dropping her bag. Some weird rumors online, Ryan's freaking out. It's a mess. She rubbed her temples, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Soup smells good, she added, forcing a smile. I served her a bowl, the picture of a caring husband, while the app showed her car's latest detour. Another hotel, Friday night. She ate, oblivious, as I planned the next move. The studio was her heart. Losing it would break her. But I wasn't done. Ryan's turn was coming, and it'd be uglier. Tuesday, the tabloids exploded. The publicist cracked, leaking just enough. Audio snippets, blurred photos, Hollywood star in steamy affair. Ryan's name wasn't official, but the clues were obvious. Social media lit up, fans speculating, paparazzi swarming his set. Emma's phone didn't stop. She paced the living room, muttering about crazy rumors and studio cancellations. I watched from the couch, feigning concern. Sounds stressful, I said. Need help? No, she snapped, then softened. Sorry, it's just a lot. She didn't suspect me, not yet. I let her stew, the chaos I'd unleashed doing its work. Mark sent more, video from Ryan's condo, Emma slipping out at dawn. I fed it to a gossip site, anonymous, with a teaser, * local yoga guru's secret life. * by Wednesday, her students were dropping. Texts I saw on her phone when she left it unlocked. * sorry, Emma, too much drama. * Thursday, Tom delivered the notice. She came home pale, clutching the paper. They're ending the lease, she said, voice shaking. Some financial mix-up. I don't get it. I hugged her, murmuring support, my arms a trap she didn't see. We'll figure it out, I lied, her world crumbling as I held her. Ryan's shoot stalled. Producers furious, his reps scrambling. I watched it unfold, the public unraveling I'd engineered, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. One step left. Friday, I ended it. Emma was a wreck. Studio gone. Clients vanished. Ryan distant as his career teetered. I cooked dinner, set the table, and waited. She sat across from me, picking at her food, eyes red. I don't understand, she said. It's all falling apart. I do, I said, my voice steady. Her head snapped up. I slid a folder across the table, photos, texts, audio transcripts, the GPS logs. She opened it, hands trembling, color draining from her face. You thought I wouldn't notice, I said. You and Ryan, the spa, the hotels. I've known for weeks. David, she started, but I cut her off. I took it all, I said. Your studio's gone because I made it happen. His career's tanking because I leaked it. You're left with nothing because that's what you left me with. She stared, speechless, tears welling. I stood, dropping divorce papers beside the folder. Sign it. You're out by morning. I walked away, her sobs echoing behind me. Ryan's next, sued for emotional distress, his name tied to the wreckage. I rebuilt alone, my house empty but mine, the revenge complete. They'd betrayed me in shadows. I destroyed them in daylight, cruel and final. A design perfectly executed.